This year marks the celebration of St. Nicholas and of men and women who came together a century ago to form a church community to worship our Savior by whom they were blessed, and of the generations who came after them and who remained steadfast in their faith, relying on it and each other to weather depressions, natural disasters, world wars, and economic downturns, so that the faith of their fathers be the faith of their children and their children's children. Each generation has left a mark on St. Nicholas and have placed a stone in the foundation on which others continue to build. Records show the first Greek immigrants arrived in St. Louis in the 1860s. They worked hard and prospered, united in strength and spirit by their faith in God, which shepherded them across the ocean into a new land of opportunity. During the next 5 decades, these courageous faithful made 2 attempts to build a permanent place of worship, without success. Then, in 1917, a third and successful attempt took place, and St. Nicholas was born. The dedication of St. Nicholas Church on December 22nd, 1917, in what was then the 4th largest city in the United States, was widely celebrated. By the end of the decade, the dedicated parishioners had purchased 3 acres of St. Matthew Cemetery, established a Sunday school, started a Greek-American parochial school, and founded the Greek Ladies Philanthropic Society known as El Peace, the Greek word for hope. The work of El Peace, helping immigrants settle and bringing comfort, hope, and help to widows, orphans, the sick and dying, made it the premier charitable organization of its time. Meanwhile, Greek men in the region found their own way to serve the Lord. In 1924, they established the St. Louis chapter of the American Hellenic Educational and Progressives Association, known to us as AHEPA, to help Hellenes build a presence in mainstream American society, anchored in the foundation of their faith. The end of World War I brought peace to this country, but the conflict between Venizelos and the royalist supporters in Asia Minor polarized their relatives in the St. Louis community, a continent away. However, with faith and the unifying influence of the newly formed Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of North America, and help from a newly formed Progressive League, the church family healed itself. 1 year later, the parish was put to another test by a ravaging tornado, but the faithful found new strength. On January 11, 1931, parishioners laid the cornerstone at 4967 Forest Park Boulevard. However, maintaining a place to worship Christ became increasingly difficult as the economy plunged. Despite valiant fundraising efforts, the church's deed of trust was foreclosed in 1934. 2 years later, the congregation's prayers were answered when the chair of the parish finance committee took out a personal loan to settle the debt. As the national economy strengthened, so did parish support. The congregation took out a new loan and purchased the building next door to accommodate future growth. The importance of Orthodox faith to the parishioners was underscored when a second war ravished the world. The church community helped form a local chapter of the Greek War Relief Association. Red Cross units were formed to prepare bandages. Lunches were served to soldiers in transit, and transportation was provided to the church so they could find solace and strength. And when the war ended, the St. Nicholas Parish honored those who had made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom by creating the American Hellenic Memorial Cemetery on the hallowed grounds of St. Matthew. The post-war years signaled the beginning of urban sprawl in St. Louis and of a new challenge to maintain a tight-knit faith community among a regional church of commuters. Once again, the faith of the parishioners prevailed. In 1950, St. Louis hosted the 10th Archdiocese Clergy Laity Congress, where the Goya organization was born. The Eastern Orthodox Church Federation of St. Louis was formed to unite Orthodox Christian witness in the community. The decade also marked the founding of the St. Nicholas Ladies Philopto Society, which continues to live its mission of serving the poor and less fortunate in increasingly innovative ways. And for the first time, the annual church picnic was held on Labor Day weekend in 1955 on the church grounds. Mid-century parish life at St. Nicholas flourished, inspiring parishioners to expand church facilities, to accommodate and spread the good word, to fulfill the spiritual needs of future generations. A new auditorium was completed and celebrated on Greek Independence Day. New classrooms were built for Sunday school and Greek school. Athletic programs thrived and social activities increased. By 1968, the parish council requested the appointment of a second priest to serve the youth ministry. During the 1970s, the St. Nicholas Parish family rededicated itself to perpetuating the faith that had maintained them. A fund was established for the education of seminarians. During the 70s and 80s, 8 young men enrolled at Holy Cross. 6 went on to become ordained as priests. The faithful embarked on a church remodel. New icons were painted in the narthex. The Philoptos room was expanded, and a chapel was added for Sunday school services. Classrooms were added, and the kitchen was modernized and enlarged to enable workers to create volumes of food for festival sales. Philoptos raised funds for the parish, the archdiocese, the seminary, St. Basil's Academy, and other charitable groups. In 1977, the Hellenic American Veterans Association put up seed money to build the parish library. And the AHEPA 53 apartments were dedicated to serve the needs of seniors in our community. On the national scene, St. Louis hosted the second annual St. John Chrysostom Oratorical Festival and the 1987 National Young Adult League Conference, attended by participants from across the United States and Canada. But as the parish family grew, available land surrounding the church buildings did not. For more than a decade, the faithful, guided by spiritual leaders and devoted parish councils, explored options that could meet the needs of future generations. In May, the St. Nicholas community met and voted to renovate the church on Forest Park Boulevard and to build a spacious 32,000 square foot community center in St. Louis County. On October 21st, 2007, the ground was blessed and broken on the St. Nicholas Family Life Center. 3 years later, parishioners joyfully celebrated a ribbon-cutting ceremony that established the new beacon on the hill. Basking in the spotlight beamed from the light in the city, illuminating a path for future generations to renew and strengthen faith and fellowship. The story of St. Nicholas is a story of its people. As Orthodox Christians who believe the Lord's Spirit is real and present in our daily lives, we've been blessed during the last 100 years with spiritual nourishment that has enabled us to endure hardship and suffering, cope with sickness and grief, and celebrate the joy and beauty that surrounds us. This year we celebrate the anniversary of the first 100 years of St. Nicholas Church, because it is just the beginning of the timeline of God's universe. And so we look forward to the future and more of the Lord's blessings as we support each other, unite to do God's work, and build upon our legacy so that future generations will be able to rely on faith, family, and fellowship.